All right. Last week, all you need is love, or love is all you need. I don't remember. I made up the title. I don't know. And it's not up there, so y'all don't know either. I win. This is the last week of the series. We're on the 10th commandment. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I don't know if you know your 10 commandments, but the 10th one is do not covet. And it's Christmas time, so I don't know, probably going to get in your business a little bit. Anyway, let me actually do this. Let me read this commandment to you. It jives with where we're going, obviously it does. It jives with where we're going in Matthew pretty well. So this is the 10th commandment. You must not covet your neighbor's house. You must not covet your neighbor's wife. Male or female servant, ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor. So let's start here. What does covet mean? Because that's not a normal word. We don't use that word anymore. You shouldn't want stuff that's not yours. You shouldn't want stuff that's not yours. The definitions in the dictionary kind of go two ways. So you shouldn't want, to covet is to longingly or immoderately desire something someone else has, or to want something or desire something that is not yours. So it kind of covers everything. If it ain't yours and you want it, you shouldn't. That's the commandment. Merry Christmas. Jesus has some things to say about this, and he digs in on. But I guess what I like to say when it comes to this is like, dude, this one's so tough because this is the to be an American and to unpack being coveting things, desiring things that aren't yours. That it's complicated. I mean, look, our economy is based on covetousness. That's the whole idea. If I can sell you something, I can make money. If I can make money, I can have money. And then if you can sell, if you can sell me something, you can make money. You can have money. That's the whole idea. And so we have this whole thing called advertising, which drives you to want things that aren't yours. And then and they're real good at it, right? And so the consumerism that we just live in is the thing. I mean, dude, do you understand? This is how good they are at it. They can put a commercial on the TV and say, you can have this $60,000 car, but we'll give you $1,500 off and an 8% interest rate. And you're like, ooh, that's a good deal. Because they make the car look real pretty, and they do all the things that make you want to have it. You know what I mean? And then if you can't afford the loan, they're like, hey, wait a minute, we'll lease it to you. It'll only be a 15% markup, and you won't own it when you're done. And then you're like, oh, that's an even better deal. Right? And I'm not calling you dumb, I'm calling them real smart. Just so we're clear. That's the way that this works. That's the world we live in. Our economy is driven by you coveting things you don't have. And so like this is a real world thing. And here's the problem. When you allow yourself to desire things that aren't yours, there comes a point, and I don't know where it is. It's probably different for everybody, but there comes a point where you begin to desire things that you don't have more than you desire God, right? And that sounds like very elementary, and it sounds like, okay, dude, don't like, chill out. God's here, the stuff is here. Yeah, that's true, but like at the same time, like in the real world, you desire these things and then you go get these things and you're like, yeah, but my desire wasn't that great. That's fine, but then you go get these things and the moment you start financing them, now you serve the things and not God. So at what point does this break? Like at what point does it become you're a slave to the things you have and not to the God who loves you? Like you're gonna serve somebody, you're gonna serve something in this life. Like that's just true, whether you like it or not. And you're like, I don't serve anybody. You go to work every day, dude. You serve somebody. I own my own business. You have customers. Like you're gonna serve somebody, you're gonna serve something. How do you take your life and turn it so that it serves God and not things, so that it serves God and not your desires, so that it serves God and not dude, your whims. Because like, if you're anything like me, the thing that gets you in trouble is not the everyday coveting. It's the times when things are really not great and you're emotionally a little bit unstable. And then you're like, ooh, I want this because that'll make it better. And then the next thing you know, you bought a bunch of stuff you didn't need and you got to pay for it. Anybody? They make it so easy too, right? And so then you have that week, and then over the course of the next week, boxes come in and you're like, I don't even remember what that is. Oh no, right? Okay, now I'm confessing. This is messed up, right? How do we fight that? Because the insidious part of the world we live in is that it will drive us to serve our things and not our God. And we'll find ourselves empty and we'll be like, yeah, but I love God. And you're empty and you don't know why. And the answer is you like stuff better than you like him. You just don't know it yet. All right, so let's unpack Jesus. This is Matthew chapter 6. We're going to be verses 19 through 24. I haven't decided yet. We might jump into the end of this section, but we'll see. All right, 6:19. Don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be also. Your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is. No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. That's uncomfortable, right? So what I want to do is I want to break down each little paragraph here, each little statement, because Jesus does this thing. So as I was unpacking this week, as I was unpacking this, preparing for today, I at first it's like, okay, how do I do this? And the thing that ended up becoming clear is that at the end of each thing, he says a statement that's very uncomfortable and very hard to deal with. So let's just start at the first paragraph and move through there. The first thing he says, don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven. Like, okay, you hear that and like for me, I read that and I'm like, okay, like I should care about the right things, not the wrong things. I should care about the original point of the sermon was care about God. Don't care more about God things than about good things, right? Because that's the thing. If you take what he's saying and you go all the way to the nth degree of it and you shun things altogether and you kind of become like this monk that just lives with no things, right? What ends up happening is we take it all the way there and you're not living in the real world. And like, that's how we become people who are so heavenly minded, we're no earthly good. We're just not normal. You ever meet those people that are, okay, actually, I'll just give you an example. When I was, I don't remember the name of the book anymore, but I remember the author. When I was a freshman in college, I do remember the book now. Okay, so they made me read this book going into college called The Irresistible Revolution. It was by a guy named Shane Claiborne, right? And this is what Shane Claiborne did. He when he was like a young man, like a college-age kid, he was so heartbroken over the issue of homelessness that he said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna be homeless and I'm gonna tell homeless people about Jesus, right? That's like super admirable. But then he wrote a book and the book was super admirable. But the tone of the book was like, hey, if you don't do this too, you kind of suck. That was kind of how it made you feel, you know? And so at like 18, I'm reading this and I'm like, I need to sell all my stuff. You know, and that's the emotional reaction. And there are those of us who would read this and be like, store up treasures in heaven. None of this matters. None of this. And like the fact of the matter is the things that God allows you to have, they're morally neutral, right? For the most part, the possessions you have in your home, they're morally neutral. It's a thing. It's where your heart goes when you receive them. It's where your heart goes when you go to possess them. It's where your heart, that's the problem. That's the question, right? And so the whole idea was desire God things more than you desire good things. So like the stuff you have isn't necessarily bad, but if you don't desire the things that move the heart of God more than the stuff you have, then you have a problem. Like that, like you have a problem. Like if you don't find more value in the people around you and in the will of God in your life than you do in the possessions in your home, then that's a huge problem. Like, look, this is a tough thing to say, but like you should be able to lose everything you own and still find contentment and peace in God. Because he gives and he takes away. He gave you everything you have, and maybe he'll take it, but you know what he won't take? He won't take himself. And so the question, what it really comes down to is this question, and I have 3 questions for the day. What does your effort tell you about what you treasure? Like, where do you put your effort? What do you put your effort in? And then what does that tell you about what you actually treasure? Because whatever you treasure, there your heart will be also, right? And so how much, where does your effort, where does it go? Does it go towards paying for more things? Does it go towards making more money? Or does it go towards things that are eternal? That's what Jesus is talking about here. He says, don't store up your treasure on earth where moths will destroy it and thieves will steal it, and it'll rust away, but store it up in heaven. And like, that's the problem with this statement is you hear it, you read it and you go, what does that even mean? Like, I can't send my paycheck to heaven. I don't think God has a bank. Right? Like, I can't, what, there's no heaven storage unit. What am I supposed to do? Store up my treasures in heaven. What he's saying is care about things that are eternal. Care about things that don't wash away. Care about things that don't disappear. What are those things? Those things are very simple. There's 2 of them. There's the will of God, and there's the souls of men and women. Do you care about those things more than you care about things? And what does the effort you exert in your life tell you about that? Where's your treasure actually? You know, and look, at the end of the day, I'm not driving you to an answer because I can't answer it for you. We all have different priorities. We all have different things going on. We all have different realities, right? And like, and also like, there's gradients within just the reality of your life. Like if you're working your tail off to pay off your house so that you can provide a college education for your kids, am I gonna sit here and tell you that it's wrong to work to make money so that you can do that? No, because the goal, the end point matters. Like that drives your heart. If you're trying to provide for your children or you're trying to provide for your family or you're trying to be able to be generous in that way, then you probably, maybe, I don't know. It sounds like you're prioritizing the right things. This is one of those where we got to put on our big boy pants and we got to really unpack it. Like this is one that we got to chew on, right? I mean, just to be honest, like this is, as a communicator, I wish that every week I could say 3 things that were life-changing. And then you'd walk out of here and be like, boom, 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 right? Because I've sat in your chair and I know that would be helpful. But this is one of those where the process probably matters more than the final outcome. Like the idea of unpacking where your priorities lie, the idea of unpacking where you put the process of unpacking where you put your effort, the process of prioritizing things correctly, the process of cataloging where you put your time and where you put your energy and what you value and why you value those things. The growth is in the process. And a lot of times what happens is we come to church, we listen to it, y'all go, hey, good job on the way out. And I go, hey, thank you, goodbye. And then you go home, you eat dinner, you watch football, and then you forget, right? And like, no criticism. I've sat in your chair and I've done it. And I enjoy the football game and I thank God for the nap. right? I've probably done it more than y'all because I've been in church every Sunday since I was born except for like 5, okay? I'm not criticizing, but what I'm saying is this one isn't one of those that you're gonna get anything from if you don't chew on it. Because it really matters where your heart is, because your heart will lead your hands. And then your hands will communicate back to your heart. And there's this cycle, and if you create a vicious cycle, then you will move yourself steadily every day away from God. But if you create a virtuous cycle, you will move yourself steadily every day towards Him. Does that make sense? So, what does your effort tell you about what you treasure? That's a tough one. The next thing, verse 22, your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is. So, if you think you know the truth, but the truth you think you know is a lie, how much bigger is that lie? If you think you're headed down the right path and you're actually headed down the wrong path, how much worse is that? Anybody ever been lost? Right? And if you've ever been lost in a town you've never been in before, okay, nowadays that doesn't really happen because you got a phone. But this one time, okay, so Man and I, she had a doctor's appointment in Baltimore, and we were driving up to Baltimore through from a trip in North Carolina. So it was one of those deals where we were at the beach in North Carolina. So we were in places that I don't go very often all that much the whole time, right? Because when you're in a place that you can find your way around. I haven't spent that much time on the eastern side of North Carolina. Haven't spent that much time on the eastern side of Virginia. And I mean, I can get from here to the bottom of Baltimore, no problem. On the other side, which is where we're going, now I'm gonna get lost, right? So we're driving up to a doctor's appointment. And at the time, we had T-Mobile. And we get into Baltimore and immediately our phones just stopped working. T-Mobile had a global blackout. It just stopped working. It was a big deal. It made the news. This was almost 10 years ago. And we had lost, completely lost. Here's the problem when you get lost. You can think you're going the right way and you're going the wrong way. And then if you're going the wrong way and you think you're going the right way, you'll drive a long time the wrong way. And then that just means that you have a longer time to go back to get to the right way. Our lives are like that. We'll think we're doing the right thing and then we'll turn around and be like, oh, I was wrong the whole time. I was wrong the whole time. I had this realization a few years ago. I had been working, obviously, I've been a pastor most of my life, and I was doing a job, and you get real self-righteous when you do things and you think you're right. And so I thought I was doing things the right way, and I was working just under my dad, and I thought that I was serving him and doing really well, but then also this thing would happen where he would want to go this way, and I would want to go this way. I worked with the team a lot, right? More than he did because he was kind of doing other stuff. He was on boards and doing all this other stuff. So I'm supposed to represent the team to him. He's supposed to, and it's supposed to all work, and we're supposed to all be headed in one direction, right? And I thought that's what we were doing. I thought I was advocating for him to them, and then we go this way. And I realized probably 3 years ago, after being out of that job for a little bit, that what I had been doing is I had been telling them what to do, telling him what we're going to do, and when he didn't like it, getting mad at him and pulling him back my direction. So I spent 5 years working against the grain. I spent 5 years going down the wrong path, being an arrogant jerk. How do you make up for that? When the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is. You break things. You hurt people. You waste time. And when it comes to this in particular, when it comes to valuing money over God, when you believe you're doing the right thing and you think you're doing the wrong thing, or when you believe you're doing the right thing but you're actually doing the wrong thing, then the problem becomes you can walk this out forever and ever and ever and then turn around and be like, what happened? What? Here's the danger. The danger is that you think you're walking in the light, you think you are following God's will in your life, but you actually have been deceived and you serve money and not God. So then you serve money and not God for a long time, and then one day you wake up and your family resents you. Why? You never valued them in the first place. That's the nightmare. That's the warning. Jesus is saying, you think if you believe, if you don't take the time to discern, if you don't take the time to work this out, if you don't take the time to figure out where your priorities lies, if you're storing up treasures in heaven or you're storing them here, if you value God and the souls of men and women above the things that you have, and if you have that wrong and you think you're doing the right thing and then you turn around and you look and nobody values what you've done and they actually despise you. Why? Well, it's not because you've been walking in God's will. It's actually because you've been deceived and you've been doing the wrong thing. And that's the nightmare, is that one day you wake up and you've done the wrong thing for years and now it's all broken. And if we're being honest, we all have seen that happen in our families, right? Where somebody thinks they've done a great job and they can't understand why they haven't, but for the whole time you've known, dude, you're just in the wrong place right now. Your head's in the wrong place, you're doing the wrong things, you value the wrong things. They're upset with you because you don't value them. You're gonna have Christmas dinner with that family member probably. And then what's left? The only thing that's left is to console them. You don't get time back. What does your life tell you about your discernment? Like, look back on your life. Look back on the things you've done. Look back on what your life has produced and unpack what that means about your spiritual discernment. What that means about you discerning between God and not God, of God and not of God, of good and evil. What does the production of your life show you about your discernment? Because if you are following God's will, what your life will produce is the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, and self-control. I might have missed one. That's what your life will produce. That's the whole thing about the fruit of the Spirit. We preach the sermons about the fruit of the Spirit, and people are like, I'm gonna focus on having the fruit of the Spirit. That's the wrong thing. A plant doesn't focus on making its fruit. A plant just grows through the nutrients that come up through the ground, and then fruit is produced. You grow in the presence of the Holy Spirit, and then his fruit is produced. And so if you're walking in the will of God, you'll be in the presence of the Holy Spirit. If you're in the presence of the Holy Spirit, his fruit will be produced in your life. And if you see the fruit of the Spirit in your life and in your relationships, you're on the right path. And if you don't, you need to change something, because your values are in the wrong place. You're valuing things of this world and not things of God. Like, if you don't see the love in your relationships growing, and I don't mean the love as in like the affection, but the abiding love that can get through anything, that can walk through fire and not die. If you don't see that love growing, you have a problem. If you don't find that in the hard times, you have more joy than you did before, you have a problem. If you don't find that when things get hard, you don't have more patience, you don't have more grace, you're not able to walk in grace because you're recognizing the grace you've been given, you have a problem. The fruit of the Spirit's not growing in your life, and if the fruit of the Spirit's not growing in your life, then you're valuing the wrong things. Does this make sense? So what does your life tell you about your discernment? At the end of the day, like, life is, from a 50,000 foot view, on the ground, life is super complicated, very frustrating, super fulfilling, very awesome. It's all of those things, right? From a 50,000 foot view, it's very simple. You're either living in the darkness or living in the light. And we need to take the time. We need to take the time to get the space to be able to evaluate it from that level. We need to be able to see, am I in the darkness or am I in the light? You have to actually take the time. It's one of the toughest things about life, is being able to get good perspective. And like when it comes to this lesson in particular, perspective is everything. And getting good perspective is hard because the pressure of daily life just pushes down on you and you can't, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. Like I will have days where I will walk into my house and you have to understand, like, dude, I have the 3 cutest little kids. And if you don't think I do, go to church somewhere else. I'm like 50-50 on whether I'm serious or not. Please stay. So anyway, look, I have the 3 cutest little kids. I have a wife that is the most loving, tenderhearted person that I know, and I'm not just saying that because she can hear me. She is. The only time that Amanda gets mad at me is because I hurt her, and it hurts deeply because she's so tenderhearted, right? Like that's just true, and I'm not making that stuff up, and I'm also not sugarcoating the fights. We have fights. You would judge me, you know, but I know why they happen. They happen because she is the most tenderhearted person in the world, and I am calloused and hard. And that's just, it just is what it is, right? And so I will walk into my house, and there are days that I will walk in, and all of the tension that I've carried throughout the day and managed to hold in comes out, right? And it's not explosive of me. It's just like this. The dog tries to eat a piece of food off the table, and I want to throw him. The baby does something, and I'm grumpy, and I'm you know? The room gets loud, and I can't handle it, you know? And then it's just like this. And then you get to the end of the night, and Amanda's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't have anything to complain about, but it's just pressing on me, you know? And when life gets like that, you can't make good decisions. I mean, dang, if you can't find joy in those little kids running over, Daddy, your perspective's jacked up. Like, your perspective is broken. And you need to find a way to create some space to be able to see the real thing. And here's my problem. Since I was a little kid, I've always been drawn to the rugged, tough guy. Like, dude, okay. My favorite movie when I was like 5, y'all want to know? The Outlaw Josie Wales, okay? You understand? This is the way I grew up. Like Clint Eastwood, scruff, like, be a man. You know, I like the Outlaw Josie Wales, and then the other one, it was that Richard Gere King Arthur movie. I can't remember what it's called. First Night, I think. And those were the ones I loved. That was like my dad let me watch those because it was like, I'm going to let you watch more mature things that point you to this. And I gravitated straight towards it, right? And so my problem is things get hard, and I'm like, cool, I'll be harder, dude. I can take it. And a couple months into that, the world gets dark, right? The world gets dark, and I think I'm the light in it. I'm tough. I'm handling it. Follow me. I got the torch. And all the while, my torch is out. I'm grumpy, and I'm screaming into the dark. And I lack perspective. One of the things that happened recently, I took, if you were here at worship night, I actually told the story, but I took a couple of weeks off of most stuff. Like I worked from my phone, and I didn't preach for a Sunday here, and it gave me about 10 days where I didn't have to be all that intelligent, and that was very helpful. And so I hunted some, and I did some other things, and just sitting in the woods, one of the things that as I was praying and that came to me is it was really, really simple. It was God very clear, right? And just for what it's worth, when people say God spoke to me, some people are like, what does that sound like? Sounds like nothing to me. It's like this. I'll be sitting there, I'll be thinking, and then I'll know something I didn't know 2 seconds before. It's not God's voice. It's just, it is God's voice, but it's not audible. Some people are like, no, it's audible. Some people, I don't know. I guess it's different for everybody. All I know is I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, and I know something I didn't know right before that. And it was very clear that God said, I give you people, not things. Don't chase things. Value people. And like that's the temptation. That's the temptation, is to think, and even as a pastor, that's the temptation, because it's like, look, there's bills to pay around here. There's stuff to do. I don't know if you noticed, but the walls get holes in them often because we actually use the building and children run around, and when children run around, things break. And there's always something to fix. There's always something to do. And so you get sucked in to worrying about the things. And then in my house, same thing. You get sucked in to worrying about the things. I got the cutest little golden doodle in the world. He runs around, but here's the problem. You leave him at home by himself. He's super anxious. Like, bro needs some Xanax. And he just scratches everything. So every door in my house has the paint scratched off of it. And I come in the house and I'm like, I want to kill him. And my wife's like, oh, but he's so sweet. Look at him. And I'm like, he's not sweet, right? Life gets you, and you start worrying about every single little thing. But God gives you people, not things. Value people, not things. He sends you people. The things that matter in this world are the will of God and the souls of men and women. They'll never pass away. They are eternal. The last portion here. No one can serve 2 masters. You'll hate one and love the other. You'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. The last question is, what do your priorities say about who you worship? Because the answer, Jesus makes this very clear. There's not a whole lot of explaining that needs to happen here. If you serve money, then you worship at the altar of a demon called money. And it's not that money is a problem, it's that worship of money is a problem. It's that love of money is a problem. Love of money is the root of all evil, right? Money is something that you have to have. Money is something that you have to live life. But if you love it and you worship it, then, and you're like, okay, but like I don't put $100 bills on my nightstand and then bow to it at night, so I don't worship it. That's not really how it works. And if you do, you're a creep. Don't do that. It's weird. That's not how it works. The words for service and the words for worship, they're like this in the Bible. In the ancient Hebrew, they're very closely related. Serve and worship, they're very closely related. And so really, you can't serve money. And if you serve money, you worship it. If all you do is live to make money, you worship it. It's your God, and you worship at the altar of that God. And what we believe as Christians is that the false gods in the Old Testament, well, what we believe, it's not that we don't believe that they're real, it's that we believe that they're demons and that they still exist and that they just have different names. And so if you worship money, you worship at the altar of a demon. It's very seriously a spiritual thing. It's not just a practical thing. It's a practical thing too. Where do your priorities lie? But also it's a spiritual thing. And if you spend your whole life worshiping, serving, living to make money, and you don't value the things of God, then what happens is you become completely debased and completely devoid of meaning and value. That's what your life turns into. Your life becomes as valuable as the dollar bill you hold, which is only whatever value it has today. Why on earth would you spend your whole life serving something that has relative value? And I mean that in a very real way, because the American dollar, there's nothing backing it other than faith in the American people. How you feeling about that right now? And you can spend your whole life serving that? It's a bad idea. And even if it was backed by gold, it's still a bad idea. It's a bad idea. It's temporal value. What do your priorities say about who you worship? There is only darkness and light at the end of the day. Do you walk in the light and worship God? Or do you walk in the darkness and serve the devil? And see, the thing about it is, the reason that the devil gets us is we always make excuses for serving him. Oh, it's not that bad. It's not explicitly evil. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm only hurting myself if I'm hurting anybody. I'm only this, I'm only that. It's not how it works. You only serve God or you serve him, you serve the devil. Like, that's it. It's that simple. There's no neutral. What do your priorities tell you about who you worship? At the end of the day, what it comes down to, and the reason that this ties back to coveting, is you can't lust after stuff. You can't prioritize stuff. You can't prioritize money over God and love him. And you can't prioritize stuff and money over people and love them. You got to do the work of figuring out how to walk through this world needing money and not loving it. Needing things to live and not living for them. And that's a tension you have to learn to live in, and that is time that you have to put into figuring out where your values are, where your priorities are, and whether or not you're walking in the light. And that's work you got to do, and if you don't do it, you're going to turn around and find one day that you screwed it up big time. And you'll be alone. And even if you're not broke when you're alone, you'll hate the money you have, because everything that you idolize, one day you will demonize. That's the way this works. Let's pray. God, make us make space in our lives. And for those of us that don't make space in our lives, make space in our lives. Give us space to be able to look through, to be able to catalog where we're at, to be able to evaluate ourselves in reference to you, to be able to see whether we're walking in the light or not, to be able to see whether we're valuing you and your will and your people or not, to be able to put all of this in order. Lord, give us the space, make us make the space, whatever it is, give us that so that we can have discernment, and so that through that discernment we can make the right choices and get our hearts oriented towards you. Don't let us be deceived our whole lives because we didn't take the time. Don't let us be lost because we don't put in the effort. Don't let us wake up one day and realize everything we've done is worthless because we valued things that aren't of worth. Put yourself in the center and give us the discipline and the strength and the self-awareness and the humility to keep you there. We love you and we thank you. Amen.